So if those of you who don't know, I'm Scott Nusbaum. I'm one of the founders of Traction. Brian and I kind of at the start with it. My focus today is all on kind of product side, not programming, but kind of product design and kind of managing the roadmap, things like that. I'm really focused on the accounting side, but obviously with Traction, field records are a big part of that. So I'm based here in the office in Auburn, Indiana, the Hoosier state. So, as Brian said this morning, what I'm going to go through is just a real simple example, just taking a field from scratch, planting it, buying seed, and kind of flowing the cost through, and then really kind of deep diving into where that cost comes from. If we've got time, I'll get into some other cost also. So we're going to take that field profit center. Today will be the deep dive on the inputs and maybe some other cost. And then the next session, we'll do the deep dive on the equipment and overhead. So first thing I want to talk about is the crop years area. So I'm actually going to be doing things today in the 2026 crop. So those of you that haven't done it is every year with Traction under the field ops area, you're going to go to this crop years. And crop years is where you assign which crops are going to be in each field. Now, just to assign crops, it's a matter of just hitting the edit option, and that unlocks it where each of the fields here, you can pick out a harvest product. So harvest product, that's a crop that we're going to do on the field. So I'm going to go down to this home field to start out with, and the home field's going to be the one we're going to work with, and I'm going to pick grain corn there. So a couple things to talk about on this crops area. The first one is a question we'll get a lot. What if, okay, I want to plant, today I'm planting that's going to be corn on it, but what if something changes and I plant a different crop? You can go back and change this crop. Is really no big deal up until you harvest the field. So once you put a harvest record in, if you try to change it, we're going to warn you in there that once you've harvested it, it's really that crop's associated with that harvested crop's associated with that crop, and you can't change it. So it's really not a big deal. I'd say that typically you really want to kind of do this ahead of time just for planning purposes, and then you can make adjustments as you need. One of the next questions I'll get a lot, what happens if I've got a double crop situation? What happens if the Scott 1 is going to have, I'm going to plant, I've got wheat in there from last year, but it's going to have, I'm going to do a double crop beans on it. What you can do is this little button over on the right lets me add a second crop for a field. So with this, I can go in and say, okay, I've got wheat and I've got soybeans, and I've done a separate harvest product for soybeans double versus soybeans, and I can kind of have those set up there. So a couple things you'll see, this in production, what this in production is doing, if you're reading like data in from John Deere or Climate, we don't always know which crop that job's associated with. So whatever in production is what we're going to default it to. So like what I typically want to do if I'm doing that is I can have it set to in production for wheat. And then when I plant the soybeans, I could switch the soybeans to it. The key for a double crop is I'm going to use the total field area for both of those. Second situation is what if I get a situation, the Scott number 2 field, maybe I got partly planted and then got rained out and then I switched it. Maybe I started planting corn, got rained out and planted the rest of it out to beans. Can do the same thing with this. Can go in and say, okay, I've got corn, I've got beans, and they're both going to be in production. And then I can put in whatever the acres are on each. And you can add multiples on this. So if a field's got split to multiples, you can go in and change those any way you want there. So once I'm all set on it, I'll hit the save button. I've got them all set there.
Scott,
Couple other,
I had a quick question
yeah, go
here.
ahead.
So yeah, how would you do fallow crop, or how you treat fallow?
Yes, you can have a harvest product in there for fallow. I think the key on this is going to be how you want to treat the cost for fallow. What I'll see a lot of times is that my fallow cost I want to actually add on to the crop for the next year. If that were the case, I would want to actually just do those off to next year's crop instead of this year. If you want to track that fallow as a separate one, I can have a harvest product out there called fallow. So, and I think if I set up one of those there, I have not. What you can do is in the add crops, we do have a crop here for fallow, and I can have a crop and a harvest product there. I'm not going to do it because I don't have it all set up, but I can have a crop for fallow and assign fallow to it. And then, yeah, hopefully that helped there with that. So next thing I'll do is say, okay, so I've got my fields, my crops all assigned to fields. I'm getting ready to plant. And let's say I'm writing a payment and I'm going to buy some seed corn that we're going to plant on one of these fields. So I'm just going to go over, and this one I'm going to do through my account register saying that I'm actually writing a check for it. This could have just as easily been a bill that I put in through the bills area, but I will add a new payment in here. And I'm going to say that payment we're writing off to Farmers Co-op. I'm going to buy inputs. I'm buying seed. And I'm just going to make our example real easy, add a brand new seed in here so we can kind of see what's going on. So I'm just going to call this. And the crop that I'm planting will be my corn, C-O-R-N, grain. My application, I'm planting it. My rates are in seeds. I'm inventorying it by the bag. My cost is going to be about $300 a bag. So what this cost will be, the cost is there as a default cost. This is if I start planting a seed before I buy it, that's going to be the cost I use. Once I actually buy it, we're going to take over and calculate the cost for you. So this is more a situation if usually I get behind on my billing, but my field records are happening sooner and I want to associate some cost. That's just some cost I can have on that before I put the bills in. So the key to this is, biggest thing to talk about here is the crop year when you buy things. When you buy things, I'm going to always tell it which crop year it's associated with. So this case, I had been buying my 2025. I was doing 2025. I'm now getting into 2026. So I want to put in my 2026 as the crop year here. And I'm going to say we're going to buy 20 bags at $300 a bag. So why this crop year is important is that when we calculate the average cost for the seed, it's going to be looking at all the payments or all the purchases for that seed for that crop year. So this is what makes sure when we figure out the cost for my field records in 2026, it's not looking at the cost I paid in 2025. So as you start buying your inputs for the new year, kind of watch and make sure that you're picking that new crop year. I think probably it defaults to 2025 up until you start buying 26. And once you start buying 26, it's going to default it over to 26. So I'm just going to keep this real simple. Just add that in there. Key to this is I'm going to say update input cost. And to show you what I've done, if I go to resources and go to inputs and go to seed, I'll set my crop year here to 26. And if I filter my inputs by in inventory, right there I can see I've got 20 bags of that seed at $300 a bag. If I click on it, I can see this 20 bags at $300. One thing to talk about here, and this is brand new in the program, what you're seeing here, this opening balance, this is just for you, those of you who are brand new to traction. So if this was my first year in traction and I had some of the seed that I carried over from last year, and want to add into inventory. I paid the bill last year, and last year I wasn't using traction. This opening balance is where I can go in and put in those number of bags with it. That's not my case, but those of you just getting started, that's where you can go in and put that information. So again, I've got 20 bags in there at $300 a bag. I'm going to turn around and let's just do a field record for that. So I'm going to do a field record here, 2026. I haven't done anything in 2026 yet. So I'm just going to do a new record. I'll do a seeding record, and I'm just going to keep it simple and pick that one field that I've got, my home field. Let's see. And I apologize. I think that I did the wrong field when I did the crop years. Let me go back again and edit field.
Get your
Ah,
correct
there
year
we
there, I was
go.
going to
Yeah,
say.
anybody caught that? So there's my mistake. I'm looking. I assigned corn to that home field. It's not showing up in the list first time through. It's still going back to 2025. Caught me there. I need to switch it to 2026. There's my home field. So I'll go through. We're just going to do it as of today. Just do simple example here. So my seed area now, I'm going to pick out that seed from the list. It's got my $300 cost that I paid for it. I'm just going to leave it here at 40 bags on there. So if you remember, I bought 20 bags. I'm using 40 bags. I'll say next. I'm not going to do anything with equipment today. We'll do that in the next session. And go ahead and save. I'll talk about now what we've done. So now I've got my field record. I've got that seed variety out there. I've got 40 bags there. What I'll see now if I go to my inputs area and go to seed again, now we'll see I've got a minus 20 inventory there. So if I look at that inventory, I'll see I bought 20 bags at $300. I used 40 bags at $300. So let's say now I've got a second bill that I'm buying some of that seed. And this one I'm going to say, okay, so this is a bill. I'm not going to pay it until later. Just got a bill in the mail today. Maybe it's due a month from now. It's due some other time down the road. Just going to enter this as a bill. So I will go to the bills area and I'll add a new bill into the program. And this is through B&S Farms. We'll say we're buying from that same farmer's co-op. I'll go to my items area, pick inputs, just like I did when I wrote the check. I'm going to pick out seed here, and I pick out that same seed variety. And I'm going to go ahead and say that we bought another 20 bags this time at $400 a bag. 400, not 4,000. Just a simple bill in there, save and close. Do I want to update cost? Yes, I want to update cost. So what I'll see now is if I go to my inputs area, go to seed, and go to, and uh-oh, looks like I screwed up there. I've got a negative 20 on there. Why is that? Anybody catch the mistake I made? So if I look back 2025, I can see that seed that looks like I screwed up. I put that bill off to the 2025 crop year by mistake. Easy to fix though, right from here, I can click on it, go in and edit that bill. And right from that screen, I can go in and quickly change that to 2026, save and close, update my input cost. And now if I go back and look at my 2026, I can see, well, it's not showing up because there's not an inventory, but if I go find it, there I can see that seed there, the $0 inventory. So The key to this, what I'm trying to show is the easiness in this area that as you find things in here that aren't right, maybe I discover I put a wrong dollar amount, I put a wrong quantity in. In my case, I put the wrong year in. Any of these transactions that you see in this drill down, all I have to do is go in and edit and I can change them right from here. What I'm really getting to here is that where that cost comes from. So what that cost is doing is taking all the purchases for that for this crop year and it's averaging together. So I had 20 bags at $300, 20 at 400. It averages to 350, and I can see that 350 there. Now, a couple things for you is that I've done a real simple one because I've just got one field in here. And I know a lot of times this list will get kind of messy because you may have a bunch of field records and the payments or purchases will kind of be mixed into them. So nice feature up here a lot of people miss is if I want to narrow it down and just see the payments, the purchases for it, I can filter this by purchases. That makes it real easy for me to see the things that actually are averaging that cost where I bought it. I just want to see my field records, my sales, my carryovers, whatever. That makes it easy for me to filter that out. So ultimately, then, what I really want to get down to is that field profitability on it. So we can see that 40 bags, $350 a bag. I go look at my field profit center. Once again, we want to switch this to 2026. I'm going to narrow it down to my corn and pick out that field. That allows me now when I update it, I can see that's where those costs are flowing into that field side of it. Any questions on what I'm doing so far?
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions. I did have one come through here, Scott. I don't think it's really related to what you're doing here, but it is a good question. Is there an integration between your enterprise software and your accounting software? So I think what this person's referring to is the Granular Business platform that we acquired some years ago, and currently it is a standalone. Um, I call it more advanced field operations type software system. Is that tied to the accounting yet?
That is not really. The field records on the business side are separate from the enterprise side of it. So I mean, there's work to be done to kind of move some of the different functionality over, but today they're running separately. So I think a couple other things just to talk about. I'll kind of go back to the input side. I think if I go back and look at my 2025, I've got actually some seed and chemicals and fertilizer that still had inventories the end of 2025. Mine are probably unrealistic, but a lot of times what you'll do at the end of each crop year, you're going to want to make sure these quantities are right. If the quantities aren't right, you want to kind of deep dive into it and see, do I need to adjust the field records? Do I need to adjust the purchase? If I need to adjust the field records, the quick way to do it is this adjust balance. Adjust balance will let you go out and adjust the field records for it. So I go in and make adjustments on it. This one doesn't have field records. It's a bad example on it. But once you've got these inventories right, what you're going to want to do is roll them over to the next year. And that's what that carryover does. The carryover button down at the bottom, that's what's going to take it. Overall, for my books, it's not going to make a difference on them. But for my inventories, it's just going to move it from the 2025 to the 2026. Now, mine's kind of a mess. I got some things with negative values. You can pick and choose the ones you want to roll over. So if that Atrex, I know I need to fix it. I don't have to do that one. Can pick and choose. And when I do the apply to carryover, it's just going to warn me. Do I want to update input cost? I'm going to say yes. So what this is going to do is take it based off the cost that I had last year and average that in over to 2025. So it's just like I bought it at that cost into 2026. And I should have showed you, I went too fast with it, but that carryover screen is going to, this unit cost is going to show the default as the average that you bought it for. If that cost is all mucked up, you can change it here. And that's going to be the cost, just like I bought those at 300 and 400, the cost that goes into the new year. I see a question there about the adjust not affecting field records. Today, we don't have a way to adjust without affecting field records. I know we've had other requests for that, so that's something we'll look at for the future. If you need to do that, I won't go through it here. There's a few steps to do it, but support can kind of help. We've got a way that we can do a $0 payment to do a negative and a positive to kind of get the inventory fixed without touching field records. So we can help you get it fixed without it. It's just the easy button's not there for that one. So good question though. Any other questions? I think, and Brian stopped me. If we've still got a little bit of time, maybe I'll cover one last thing as far as like getting other cost to a field.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions, but there were quite a few comments about picking the right crop year. And I'm really happy you did that, Scott, today. You made some mistakes there trying to do some allocations or go to reports and picking the wrong year. That can happen to anybody. So I'm glad that you did that, and people were making comments about what you were doing wrong, which was kind of neat to see that in the chat.
It is. And so, it kind of remembers. I've got a first time tell it it's 2026. The second time through it defaults to 2026. If I do a bill, it'll default. So it's really that first time through you got to kind of watch. But everything's designed that if you make a mistake like that, it's pretty easy to go in and go back and fix it. So yeah, I think just the last one, and this one probably a lot of you have seen yet, but I'll do it through the bills area. Maybe I'm putting in my cash land rent bills for next year for 2026 in, so I've got it in the bills area. I want to allocate those off to the fields. So I would go in, I would just pick out whoever the landlord is, go to items, pick out other expense, pick out my land rent expense, put in whatever the amount is, and then just down in the cost allocation, go to zones. Again, this time it has. I've done enough with 2026. It's now defaulting 2026 there. So I now can go in and pick out whichever fields that's related to. So I just want to do it to all these fields, can allocate it to all those fields. And again, this is putting a bill out there that I can pay later on for that. I could do the same thing through the payment if I'm writing the check right now. And what I've done with that then, if I go back to that field profit center report, now I've updated it. This field it worked out to, yeah, unrealistic amounts, but I've got some land rent on that field out there for it. So it's starting to build out the cost on that field. So again, just for this session, we're kind of talking about the inputs, the chemical, seed, fertilizer, all that's coming from your field records, averaging the cost you bought it at. These other expenses will be things like your land rent expense, would be like crop insurance expense, property tax expense, any direct expenses for the field will go that way. And then the next session, we'll get into your equipment side, how you get equipment cost on there. And then I'll also talk about overhead, how you do other overhead costs there. So we're hitting right at 9:30, Brian. I think probably open it up for any last questions.
Yeah, yeah. So go ahead and unmute yourself. We'll stay on here as long as you want us to be. And so if there's other topics or questions you might have that relates to field profitability, love to hear them. Not seeing anything in the chat, Scott.
Let's put them all to sleep, Brian.
Yeah, and this field profitability screen that you're looking at here, where you see the actual equipment cost, you'll be covering all that on the next webinar. And that's a whole nother session. We start thinking about equipment cost and how you handle depreciation, fuel, and all that. It's another rabbit hole to go down under. So you'll be covering that on the next webinar.
Correct.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll just kind of touch on kind of wrap things up here. When is part two? Good question. That kind of leads me to this slide here. So we've got a few more webinars this week. We'll have a Paylocity meeting tomorrow, I believe, the 21st. Yep. And then we've got a couple other ones that focus on our integrations. Uh, and also 1099 is this week as well. So if you need any help with how to output 1099s out of Traction and use the integration to tax 1099 and get the reports you need to your accountant or file them on your own, that's an excellent webinar on the 22nd, which is Thursday. The second part of this is the one that's labeled "What's that tractor really costing you?" on January 27th. So Scott's going to deep dive into that and just kind of build upon the field profitability report. So that is the part two that we're referring to, was the "What's that tractor really costing you?" webinar. And we'll have another session about field profitability, more of a repeat session on this one on February 3rd. All these webinars can be found on our website. If you go to the very bottom of the website and go to upcoming events, you'll see those there. And we'd love to hear other ideas for webinars. So there's specific topics that you want us to cover. Go ahead and add those to the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and let us know. We'd love to hear that and keep building upon what we're doing with the webinars. We love doing these things. We love hearing your questions, and just, again, helps us improve the product.
I see
There
a
is a,
few questions there, Brian. Yeah,
yeah, I
so
see that.
Mark, the inventories of fuel and propane, we don't do an inventory on it. We're actually looking at adding the ability to track quantities as you buy it in the near future sometime this year. So it's still not full inventory on it, but as you put other expenses in, we'll have you the ability, you can put quantities in there to track quantity purchased. Jason, can you change the crop year after a farm record is created? Yes, you can change the crop in a field up until you do the harvest. Once you do the harvest, it'll all be locked in. And Brian, they are all recorded. The sessions are
Yes.
right.
Everything's recorded today, and we'll share at some point today the recordings to everyone.
And yeah, Kristen, if you keep any seed or fertilizer carryover in reality, but something remains in 2025, you do need to do that carryover for it. I mean, if it sits there in 2025, nothing happens to it. So if you're going to use it in 2026, you want to carry it over to 2026. So, I mean, unless it's something that's going to get returned or sold, you would want to do that carryover. Yeah, looking back, the work orders and enterprise, I know that is something we're looking at for the future. I can't say any time, I can't really give you a time frame on it, but I know it's something on the roadmap for the future. And the connection between QuickBooks and Traction, that really our focus is doing the accounting side. So um, really no plans to do a connection with QuickBooks. Is there any that I missed, Brian?
There was a comment in the other chat room here about tax1099.com is a week behind for processing. If submit today, it says they will process 7 days later.
It's a good comment. I wasn't aware. I think that with that, what they do is they get closer to the deadline. You should be getting emails. I know I've got a couple accounts I've done, and they should be giving you emails on that. So I know they'll give you warnings as it starts clicking towards that deadline side of it. So that's a good reminder, just if you got your 1099s to do, to be aware of that. Exporting data electronically to accountants using their own software. I would say probably the main thing we're going to do is any of the reports will have a CSV export. So that CSV is like probably your accountant would want either like a cash income statement or a Schedule F report. Exporting that as a CSV would probably be the biggest one that would help them out.
I'll make sure to add the link to the future webinar about the equipment costs, just so the people who attend this one, it's just a reminder to sign up for the next one that kind of relates to the field profitability one that we covered today. Again, that one is covered on January 27th. Okay. Well, I think we've gone silent here a little bit, so I think we're all done for today. And yeah, I appreciate you all joining, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks, everyone.